Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I want to talk about the Yao Guang is bait allegations, right? Of course, people are always cautious when it comes to the first support of an upcoming new meta. However, I think people's concerns are misplaced. Of course, you yourself can play the cautious game and just wait till their reruns to see if they're actually best in slot for these Annie characters that a lot of people are looking forwards to. However, the thing I can basically guarantee is even at this time, they will still be best in slot for both of these anniversary characters, right? So, let me explain my reasoning. Now, the false fallacy, right, the non-equivalent fallacy that people love to use when it comes to Yao Guang falling off is Sunday, right? They say that because Sunday ended up not synergizing with a majority of the Remembrance characters, that he was complete bait and that it's just not going to be worth it for these Annie characters, right? Now, here's the problem. Sunday was in the previous version and not of the new character path, right? For example, the only character who really has like Memo Sprite specific buffing is Evernight. That is the most equivalent to Yao Guang's buffing in the game, because the majority of Yao Guang's buffing outside of a little res pen and vulnerability is her what's it called? Her elation damage buffing, right? So she has specifically all this elation damage buffing. However, not only that, she even has an ult which will trigger an AHA instant instantly, allowing the entire team to do their elation skills and generate skill points herself, right? So her entire kit is built solely around having a full elation team, and obviously the only way a team can take full advantage of her AHA instant on ult is if you have a mono elation team, or at least as many elation characters as possible, right? So this entire dooming around Yao Guang being the next Sunday when they just have nowhere near the same kits, and Yao Guang is basically entirely targeted towards specifically elation, is kinda dumb, right? And then, even if you want to make this argument, this comparison to Sunday, the reality is Hoyo is selling these teams differently, right? Cassie did not get her third slot support and as well as her sub DPS until damn near the end of the version, right? However, they are doing the opposite with this elation path and releasing the sub DPS of Sparksy and the third slot support of Yao Guang as actually the first introductory characters towards the path, right? So with this being the case, it is highly doubtful that they'd actually replace these characters this quickly, especially before they even get their first reruns, which by the way lines up perfectly with the Annie characters. Hoyo quite commonly reruns characters 3 patches after their initial release, because that's when they usually get their full best in slot team. So from 4.0 to 4.3, this is 1 patch after the Annie DPS's release, meaning it's very likely Hoyo will remain these characters, have them as their best in slot, at least up until that time, right? Otherwise, they just lose money if Sparksy, who's supposed to be a sub DPS, isn't best in slot, and Yao Guang, who's supposed to be the third slot, isn't best in slot, right? Now, of course, I don't come here only future rail crafting. I come here with some actual evidence, right? Because Anon Leaks, the most reliable leaker in the entirety of our space currently, basically has a 100% track record for the last year, other than getting a Cassie rerun wrong, has said that after 4.2, we will be getting a negligible amount of elation characters, right? So from 4.0 to 4.2, we are getting Sparksy, Yao Guang, Yai, and Sylvie, who are both separate main DPSs, and then EMC. And then after these patches, we will get mostly non-elation characters. Of course, there's going to be the EMC upgrade. EMC is likely going to be a sustain in my opinion, right? Somewhere down the line in like the Astropolis side of things on that planet. However, outside of that, at max, we may get one or more 2 Elation characters, and there's no guarantee that they aren't as well Elation DPSs, right? Like, even if they do this, right? This is a lot of fucking mental gymnastics to say that Yao Guang would be best in slot, but I'll play along. These 1 to 2 other Elation units, and probably the rest of version 4, end up being best in slot for one of the Annie characters. There's 2 of them, right? Like, there is both Yai and Silverwolf, and even if we assume this, these Elation characters will probably be left until damn near the end of version 4. So you would have waited an entire year, right? An entire year to finally pick up some of these characters just because you're slightly cautious that another Elation best in slot could be slightly stronger than Yao Guang. And to put the final nail in the coffin here for why I believe Yao Guang will be best in slot for at least the Annie main push being Silverwolf is that every single Annie main push has had a gimmick ult, right? When it came to Acheron, she wanted debuffs inflicted on enemies so that she could get her ult as quick as possible. For Cassie, her gimmick was that she wanted people on her team to both lose HP and as well gain HP. So obviously, unless they for some reason just got rid of this trend, they're probably gonna give the Annie main push another gimmick, right? What gimmick makes the absolute most sense in this case scenario? Well, it would be Aha Instance, right? The amount of Aha Instance or Elation skills casted by teammates on the team will likely contribute towards the Annie main push's ult, right? Because this is just something the game has history with. So if this is the case, then Yao Guang would 100% be best in slot because of her allowing Aha Instant to instantly go every single time that she ults. She also has high SP positivity, her buffs are highly tailored towards specifically Elation, her E1 is also specifically Elation, and even further increases the damage done on her Aha Instant. I mean, it's like, how much more do I need to sell someone Yao Guang, right? Now, once again, you can believe and be cautious and wait till their reruns. However, I can almost guarantee you right now, there will not be any other option better than Yao Guang by the time her rerun comes around. So you are literally just stalling yourself for absolutely no reason. This woman is not getting removed. We are likely going to get an EMC upgrade in the future who ends up being the limited sustain, and literally nothing other than that is even possible, right? You guys got to keep in mind, they got to sell multiple other DPSs. Himiko SP being the second main push is probably going to get 4.5 and 4.6 mostly dedicated towards herself. What does this leave us at? 4.7, right? They add one extra Elation unit, and bam, that's done. We got the upgrade for EMC, and we move on. It is so unlikely that Yao Guang gets replaced. Keep in mind, I'm also very confident Sparksy will be best in slot for one or both of the Annie DPSs. However, at least Sparksy, there is a little more of a likelihood that she gets replaced because she's a sub DPS and not a third slot, right? However, Yao Guang is, I guarantee you, she's here to stay. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.